Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Emily Crowe, Multimedia Editor at Progressive Grocer, and I will be your moderator for this event. We're here today to discuss AI-driven accounts payable automation and how it's changing the game for the grocery industry, including how it can help food retailers catch cost and delivery variances in real time, streamline DSD receiving and purchasing, automate margin management, improve store-level visibility, and more. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to share. First, the audio for this event is streamed through your computer or mobile device. Make sure to unmute your speakers and turn the volume up. One of our goals is to make this session as interactive as possible. You can use the Q&A function, which is on the left side of your screen below the presenter headshots, to ask questions throughout the webinar. I'll hold those questions until the end of the presentation and then pose them on your behalf. Your identity will remain confidential to the audience. If we don't have time to answer all of the questions, we will follow up with you after the session concludes via email. You can also use this section if you have any technical questions about the webinar itself, and you will get a direct reply from our webinar producer. Also, if you want to review the webinar or share it, a replay will be available within 2 hours. With us today is Ben Spiegel, Retail Product Manager at Ottimate. Ben has held roles in product and customer success at Ottimate, and before joining the company, he worked in vendor distribution and held various positions in the hospitality industry. Also joining us is Don Dittmar, Vice President and Head of Product at Ottimate. I'll be back after a presentation for our audience Q&A, but for now, Don, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Emily. Appreciate the introduction, and thank you very much for hosting us today. We're excited for the opportunity to talk to the attendees here today. As Emily said, my name is Don Dittmar. I'm the head of product at Ottimate, and I'll tell you a little bit more about Ottimate in just a moment. But my role is to oversee the product and strategy direction of what we bring to the market. Prior to joining Ottimate and prior to my career in product management, I spent much of my career on the buy side for accounting solutions. So my first experience with AP automation solutions, such as the one we're going to talk about today, was as a customer, similar to many of you. I'm joined today by Ben. I'll let Ben kind of do his introduction when we get to his segment in just a moment. But as Emily mentioned, Ben runs our retail segment, and specific to that, groceries among our retail vertical. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit today. I want to level set. We're going to talk about a lot, and the star of the show is really Ben and what we're doing with direct store delivery reconciliation with our price catalog validation agent that we've built into our product. But I want to level set briefly before we get too deep into that on what really Ottimate is and what AP automation is. So this is a very generic definition. I'm not sure exactly where we got it, but it's probably just a very simple kind of analyst level definition of AP automation. The process of using tech to streamline and automate tasks within the payables process, invoice processing, payments, workflows, instead of relying on manual methods. And hopefully this is obvious to most of the attendees, but we do have some, various levels of maturity in terms of the technology. And this is probably well known, but I would say that we're definitely in a third generation of AP automation that's centered around artificial intelligence and the value that you can get from the AP automation, not just the efficiency and the throughput itself, which is still really important, but the next layer of value that you can get by applying AI and machine learning. So I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing at Ottimate, just kind of level set on that. So what is Ottimate? We're AI-powered AP automation. We want to drive every financial outflow, essentially, for your buying process. So our core product contains customizable approvals, vendor payments, analytics, invoice automation, expense management, and PO matching. And as I mentioned, those are sort of the base layers of automation. But what's special about Ottimate today is that we do that based around a machine learning engine. So it's not necessarily the old even algorithmic or if-then statements where AP automation was born. It's really looking at the payables process like a large language model would look at it and interpreting it at a semantic level rather than looking for specific things on a document and trying to match those to other specific things in your database. So we consider it the next generation of AP automation based around artificial intelligence. what's my focus as the product leader is your job to be done. The ultimate goal of AP automation is at the base level, clean books. You have to have, the trust in your books, the confidence in the integrity of your financials. But at the next level, leveling up the value of AP. Once you've automated it and taken away the overhead of getting the job done, then you start to unlock the value of what's inside your payables. How much are you spending on certain items, inventory items, cost of goods sold, direct spend, indirect spend? You can start to put a more intelligent analysis on that. So that's really how we dive in as a company to understand just your job to be done. And I'm going to hand it over to Ben shortly. But what Ben's job is at an even more detailed level is to understand that specifically for retail and grocery, because there are very verticalized, very specific needs in the AP automation space that need to be served by our solution. So why does that matter? It's changing your process dynamic from throughput, just getting the work done, to the intelligence, understanding what's truly happening in your payables, your cash flows, all of it, to make sure you're making the most of it and getting the maximum out of it. Providing that visibility you need to optimize that spend, buying power, and cash flows. You want to make sure you're floating what you can and paying what you can't, and getting the best return on your cash flows, but also the best pricing as you have those things flowing through your organization's buying process. And then there's the peripheral sort of, I'll call it overhead value of, reducing the audit scope, the audit risk. There's a really cool application of our tech where if you do an external audit or even internal audits, you don't have to put as much effort into understanding the manual process because you've automated it. So you audit the tech once and you kind of set it and forget it and have a little less of that execution style on it. So just briefly to wrap up, Ottimate provides the ability to process and understand invoices at a scale with a high degree of accuracy. And when I say that, it's not just the old world OCR to finding the characters and understanding the information on the page. It's reading it like a large language model would, understanding that an invoice has a relationship to a purchase order and a catalog price that Ben will talk about, and a receipt, and that those are a collective intelligence model, and reading them together, not just trying to tie them together at a detail level. It's based on our deep learning models for image processing, which is kind of the base layer, but really workflow, user behaviors, all of the inputs, coding that happen to your invoice process, and learning from that so that it can eventually automate that and provide intelligence and detect anomalies that your users might not, because they're they're kind of consumed by the work itself. The ability to confirm those prices against what you intend to pay, whether that's your purchase order, your catalog, your receipt, your contract, your rebates, special pricing, promotional pricing that you may bring into your catalog, to make sure you're paying what you intend to pay and what you've agreed with your vendors to pay for your goods, whether indirect or direct. And then, bring those discrepancies and those anomalies to the forefront, find workflows and create workflows so that you can analyze them when they don't match, and really detect those unknown things that may just pass under the radar if you're just processing those invoices. Quickly automated at a glance, just to give you kind of the scale of where we're at this month, the past month, excuse me, we processed over 2.5 million invoices. That's almost 13 million lines processed, 107,000 vendors that we're interacting with between our customer and their vendors. Over $2 billion in invoice value processed through Ottimate. That's payables, and some of that is also actual payments that we make on behalf of our customers as a service to them. And then right now we're running at about 96.25 invoice line item accuracy rate. And that's both in the recognition of it and the classification of it. So we understand, based on your history, that is an OPEX or an inventory or a prepaid. We can understand where you want that to be, and at a very high degree of accuracy, predict that for you. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ben. We're going to get into the details of our direct store delivery solution. I'll call it, it's more than just our core product. It's how we solve your issues specifically. It's your direct store delivery and your catalog match. So I'll turn it over to Ben so you can go through that.
Hey, thanks, Don. And thanks, Emily, for the introduction. So just by way of background, I've been with Ottimate for a number of years now, with a specific focus on our go-to-market efforts for grocery retail. I am working on the ground with our customers and both taking business problems to the ideation and execution stages, and then bringing that to market with the other functions within our organization. So really, as we scale within this space, we're really looking to define those problems and build for the needs of grocers here in 2025. For context, Ottimate has been in the AP automation space since 2014. We started attacking a very narrow problem centered around restaurants primarily, and the need to digitize with a high degree of accuracy and scale invoice line items, and primarily on paper invoices, be it scans, images, or PDFs. Now, what Don's described is the end-to-end lifecycle flow for AP automation. So an invoice as it lives from delivery at the back of the store through a scanner into your cloud-based instance, through the approval workflows acted upon by our large language model agents and machine learning rules, and then exported into your ERP system. So that's primarily a financial problem. What we've done over the last 4 years is pivot to orienting the product to speak to multiple personas within the grocery back office. So you're assured that when that invoice comes in to Ottimate, you're having visibility into the costs, you're exposed to specific vendor rules, it's being allocated to the correct general ledger, department, location, dimensions within your accounting table. But there remains a question as to whether the data on that invoice matches what you're expecting to pay. So the thesis that we have and the problem that we're looking to solve is around DSD receiving invoices. So pulling back and looking at the bigger picture here, independent grocers today operate on razor-thin margins. In 2024, EBITDA on average for independent grocers averaged 2.8%. Net profit was down to 1.4%. So every dollar, every dime counts. Margin is critical, and that's the difference between the leaders in this space and the folks that struggle. At the same time, independent grocery stores manage incredibly complex businesses. On average, there's about 28,000 items per store. Roughly 40 to 50% of those items come through direct store delivery distribution channels, and stores are turning over inventory over 17 times per year, meaning things are moving fast. Accuracy is non-negotiable, and focus on pricing from both the back office SMS software to the retail floor is critical to eke out that net profit at the end of the day. This is all happening against a backdrop of margin compression. So 2023, gross margins fell to 27.7%. Buyers are becoming increasingly discriminating around where their purchases are coming from, and costs are rising from CapEx to labor to inflationary pressures on food goods. So against this backdrop, many grocers, based on their receiving methodology, are reconciling DSD invoices manually without any real-time insights into cost, deliveries, or variances. So fundamentally, this is the business problem that we're solving. These challenges that grocers experience include discrepancies in data errors on the vendor invoice that sometimes is just paid as it hits the financial queue, missed discounts and overpayments for goods where the product pricing exceeds the contracted or agreed upon amount, limited insight into cost visibility, so variances on vendor invoices, be it changes in prices that potentially mean that your retail is higher than your expected gross margin, or overbilling on the part of the vendor, or items that have come in that are unauthorized, or subs from the vendor that are unintended. And fundamentally, the reconciliation process, if you're doing scan-based receiving, often involves taking a physical receiver and comparing the total to the invoice, and then going line by line to manually define the differences. As you all know, grocers are increasingly facing bandwidth issues on the back office, and often just pay the invoices to hit early pay discount terms or stay within vendor terms, hoping for the best. So against that backdrop, we are defining two key solutions to we're transformed DSD receiving into a visibility-rich process. The first solution that Don intimated was our cost file validation solution. This solution is a real-time validation on items of an invoice against the cost file that we extract from your SMS system. So if you're not doing scan-based receiving, you're taking the invoice, you're marking up the quantities. Our AI AP automation ingestion service will notate those changes on the invoice and adjust the quantities. Concurrently, we're ingesting cost files out of your SMS system, keeping a real-time record of the item cost database on our side. We're leveraging AI to facilitate a match between the item that exists within your back office and what we read off the vendor invoice, exposing on a line-by-line level, and then at an aggregate header invoice level, variances, be it overbilling or potential underbilling, where the vendor cost has changed. Separately, we're building flows now that allow us to extract item costs directly from vendor invoices and push those revised costs back into the SMS system. So if you're working with very small DSD vendors, farmers, and they're not sending accurate price books and you're having to manually update, or you're having to delays in updating your retail, the flow that we're building as part of this product allows you to extract that price off the invoice and push it back into your system. So ultimately, the goal of this product is to reduce shrink and protect your margins, while not forcing you into leveraging any scan-based receiving methodology. If your organization has a more formal method for receiving, if you're scanning goods in using a Zebra scanner or handheld, you're creating a receiver document within your back office system, our validation service will ingest that receiver. And if it's backed by a PO, we can ingest the purchase order as well and facilitate a 2- or 3-way match against that object. We can set up unique vendor threshold rules and escalate matches to specific users, be it buyers, merchandising managers, department heads, based on variances in quantity, cost, or unit of measure, ensuring visibility into potential variances and discrepancies only on invoices that you need to see. Together, these solutions close the loop on what was ordered, what was delivered, and what was billed, giving you the full context on what items should cost. So let's just take a moment and describe how this works in practice. So here's a real-world flow that we see with clients. Vendor will deliver the products to the store. The store scans those items or records into their POS and receiving system. Ottimate pulls that receiver log out of your SMS system, and we match it to the invoice that's uploaded via scanner at the back door. All of this can take place in 24 hours, and you'll receive an email in your inbox for review of invoices that require specific approval. If that scanning system is not happening at the back office, at the back door, mark up that invoice in the same way you would, notating the changes in quantity, upload it, and within 24 hours, you'll have an invoice with the matched cost file items from your system with the correct version of the price when the invoice was issued, and any variances, be it positive or negative, that you can reconcile. Approved invoices can be posted within the ERP automatically, so no manually keying account splits and accounting dimensions directly into your ERP. There's a digital record of that invoice. It's indexable, so you can search based on item, dimension, or any type of keywords, and host it in perpetuity in the platform, so you can pull up a record of all vendor invoices over a specific period, leveraging our analytics tooling to provide unique insights. So this product is not just about catching errors, it's about trusting the data, drilling into the analytics, and streamlining both purchasing and vendor billing decisions. This type of infrastructure reduces friction from DSD flows and helps prevent loss, drives accountability, at both the department, the financial, and the merchandising level. Our technology is really sitting as a bridge between your distinctive teams, giving them an interface where they can work in tandem. So let's look at impact. We've been working with Heritage Grocers Group, a 130 unit grocery group across the country for the last 3 years. They leverage our receiver match service to catch variances between invoice and receivers and post them for review by the merchandising team for interrogation. Separately, we looked at a grocery client using our DSD flow. Over a 12-month period, that client had over 8.3% of invoices with pricing variance greater than $15. The average variance amount was $18. In the 1 year time span, the variance accounted for almost $5 million in billing discrepancies. All this happened before AP even saw the invoice. Once they implemented the receiver match, variances were flagged in real time before the invoice hit the books. Discrepancies are escalated to buyers and store teams automatically, and they regain control of margins without slowing down business. I think the point of what Don and I are trying to say here is that in this market, you really can't afford to miss margin that you've earned from your vendors. DSD receiving is not just an operational process. It's not just a means of saving on warehouse labor and CapEx. It's really a margin protection strategy. With the right visibility, automation, and controls in place, our suite of tools empower grocers to make powerful decisions and protect their payments. Don, I'll pass it back to you to just finish on a little bit of the work we're doing around AI and the future of our agentic tools.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Appreciate that. Great job walking us through our solution. I know those stats with Heritage, but as you articulated to them, even me sitting here knowing them, they're impactful. That without that attention, there's potentially 5 million in COGS that's just sort of slowly creeping out through the invoice processing, and you'd need a very high level of manual attention to catch that, even still with a fairly low level of hit rate in finding those things and addressing them and ultimately resolving them. So that impact is very powerful. And again, I knew the stat, but when you stated it, very impactful to me even. So back to Ottimate a little bit and our core that's built around AI. I mentioned before that there are previous generations of products in this space, and if you know AP automation or procure to pay or source to pay, you absolutely know that has been there. But the AI machine learning core truly is revolutionizing what we're able to do in this, and processing these invoices at scale with the line item details, understanding not only the accuracy. It used to be an accuracy game. Who can recognize the lines the best, and that is pretty commoditized at this point. And what we've replaced it with, what Ottimate was founded on, is using machine learning to do that in a way that doesn't just recognize what's on a page. It's not just about exchanging that data between a buyer and a supplier. It is understanding what that data means and learning from what your users do with it so that we can predict it. We can detect those anomalies. So we're always investing not only in the DSD solutions that Ben is describing, but in the whole of our solutions and in our core product, in that deep learning vision, in the algorithms that we specialize. So of course, OpenAI and public AI is very available, but where it really becomes special is when you verticalize it and you get that in a very specific solution that speaks to your customer in their industry and in the way they want to run their business, which is what our platform is capable of learning. So, And what we feel we do well is also bring in that human in the loop. We understand that there's a bell curve of most of these cases, most of these invoices matching to a catalog, a purchase order, a receipt, a contract even. Most of them are going to be relatively within that bell curve to understand that, yeah, this is your normal transaction. This is what your accounting team kind of does on a repetitive basis. But then for our product to learn what's outside the bell, what are the outliers where we do need to say, hey, this is risky, or this is well outside the norm. This is truly an anomaly. We need to have a human taking a look. A human in the loop to take a look at this, and of course learn from what that human does as well, but understand that there's a range where we shouldn't necessarily apply too many rules, and we should draw the attention to the knowledge workers, the subject matter experts that understand that. So all core to our AI. Where are we going in the future with that? We're using all the best tools. AI is, as a person in the tech space, it's unbelievably rapid. Even month to month, there are big changes in what you can do right now. We're working towards a multimodal LLM trained to really work with the image as a whole in the way that a human would look at it. And it's hard to describe that, but instead of OCR finding a character and putting a character in a box, we're looking at that as a whole. We're starting to understand the context between what's on the invoice, your receiver, your shipping documents, your contract, your price catalog, and understand the same way your knowledge workers would understand it, also based on their behavior. AI-powered search and analytics, we are working on towards the end of this year, we'll release our copilot, where the interface with Ottimate will change pretty significantly in that it's more conversational. You can ask for specific reports. You can ask, what is my cost on bananas over time, and who's the highest price vendor, who's the lowest priced vendor, and we'll be able to return that to you in a way that is in the way you want to work, and then dive deeper into those details if you need to. We're going to leverage AI to power more conversational interface. I mentioned that just now. Really, both ends of the spectrum. So your sort of standard operational reporting, graphic, but conversational as well. And then agentic workflows. Really, we're using agent to describe almost what a broker would be. So an agent that's matching your DSD goods and understanding how they match to your price catalogs. But we're launching this mid-year this year, a risk agent, which says, hey, here's a risk score for every invoice that you process. And that's all parts risk. That's supplier risk, fraud risk, pricing risk, to give you a score to say, we're ranking this for you based on all of those factors across all of the pieces that make up this invoicing flow. And then lastly, before I wrap up, we do want to focus just on our specialization in this space. So we regularly benchmark Ottimate against the public, the big open AI models, so Claude and Gemini and GPT, on a regular basis. And we're not claiming by any means that we are as broad as those LLMs are. We are not. But in this space, specific to retail-oriented, high-volume, COGS-oriented invoices that end up with very many line items that are very detailed. In that type of invoice format, we actually benchmark better than the OpenAI models, which would make sense. We are specialized. They're broad and generalized, but we are constantly benchmarking ourselves using those models as improvement in the way we look at the data models and what's on the page, and extract that and put it in a format that works like a human mind does and understands that invoice as an invoice, not just characters on a page.